Ladies and gentlemen, those with us at the fifth session of the Capital Dialogue here in New Delhi, a special series that we're doing to celebrate the build-up to the launch of the new Indian Parliament building. We've had 4 riveting sessions, and for the fifth one, a person who has served his country with diligence for an entire career. He's brought in professionalism to government, and now he is helping set up the stage for literally India's big world stage party that is taking place not just in the national capital, but right across the country. We all know who he is. Currently, our G20 Sherpa, Amitabh Kant. Let's have a round of applause. Mr. Kant, welcome to NewsX, and thank you for taking out time for this Capital Dialogue. The G20 session, sir, I don't think we have seen such an effort being put by all areas of government, all areas of intelligence in this country to make this a meaningful 1 year of the G20. How has it been going so far, sir? Before I ask you, what are the plans ahead?
So first of all, let me say that our G20 presidency is very different from other countries. Normally, a G20 presidency, they have meetings in one city, the capital city, or they have it in 2 cities. In India's case, the Prime Minister decided that G20 should be held as a people's movement, and it should be held in every state of India. And therefore, we are doing G20 in 59 cities of India, and we've done close to about 97 odd meetings so far already. Since December 1st till now, we've done about 97 meetings in almost all the states now. And we've had a huge amount of support from the state governments. So one is that we've had very good substantive content on which discussions have taken place. We've been very ambitious, action-oriented, very inclusive, very decisive. But the good thing that's happened is that we've taken it to the cities, and we've used this as an opportunity to really rejuvenate these cities in terms of drainage, sewage, solid waste. And therefore, if you go to places like Udaipur or Kumaragam or Aurangabad or Pune, these cities have got completely transformed. The second is that we've used this opportunity to promote the soft power of Indian states. That is the cultural component of every single state. We've not done any program other than what the states want. And those states have really done fascinating work in bringing out all their traditional folk and classical art forms and brought them center stage. And the world has been able to see many of these great folk and classical art forms. We've also used this as an opportunity to promote handloom, handicraft, one district, one product, the millets of India, all this through the G20 effort. So it's not just about holding a meeting. When you hold a cricket World Cup, it's for 15 days. When you do a football in Qatar, you do it for 12 days compact. This is G20s through the year, from 1st of December to the 1st of December. And through the year, you have an opportunity to transform your...
What's the total like? So you said 97 done. How many before we come to the heads of government level meetings?
215 meetings in all.
Wow.
And out of them, we've done 97 now.
And that's touching down how many, you said all the states, but how many cities? Of course, you're planning one in Srinagar, one in the northeast,
all over.
Everywhere.
We are going to cover every single state and 59 cities of India.
Fantastic. Priyaji.
About the Srinagar meetings and the one in Leh, the Y20 in Leh and the G20 tourism in Srinagar, how confident are you? Because a lot of countries who are unhappy are saying they will not come. Pakistan, China, the OIC countries. What kind of a message is this sending out in terms of India's role as a consensus builder? Or are you okay if they don't come also? Because that sends its own statement also.
So these are very integral parts of India. When we do G20, we can't compromise on a territorial integrity of the country. That's very important. That's the message we want to send out. That we are doing G20, but our territorial integrity is far more critical than anything else. But let me tell you that every single country came to Arunachal, other than one country, and we are very confident that every country will come to all the other meetings that we are hosting. 1 or 2 countries may have objection. But let me tell you that there are 20 countries, there are 9 other invitee countries, there are international organizations, 43 of them. So we will take this forward, and I think everybody will understand India's viewpoint that we are doing what is best for the country.
Okay. I'm going to get my colleagues just to pass out some microphones in the audience. We will take some audience questions just a bit. But before that, sir, so one is the organizational part, and the other is that the G20 offered in the past for many years, regardless of whose presidency it is, just, it's seen as a talk shop. People gather, they have a conversation. But we are being told that this time around, you, government, are very adamant that something substantive should come out of it, a meaningful discussion with something concrete coming out of it. And that's not easy given the geopolitical affairs. Which areas are you hopeful for that something substantive can be remembered from the Indian presidency?
So let me first say that G20 is an economic grouping. It's a group which discusses issues of economic development, of growth, of progress, of financial challenges, etc. And it has evolved from being the grouping of the finance ministers and the central bank governors into a G20 leaders meeting. In the past, whenever there has been a crisis, whether it was 1999, 2002, 2008, every time a crisis has taken place, the G20 has stepped in and taken very important decisions. And G20 is important because it comprises of 85% of the global GDP. It comprises of almost 75% of the global trade. It comprises of almost 90% of the patents. It comprises of about 2/3 of the global population. So it has taken important decisions. During India's G20, we've have very ambitious priorities. When you look around the world today, you'll realize that there is a global slowdown. 1/3 of the world, according to IMF, is in recession. And it's important to accelerate the pace of inclusive, resilient, and sustainable growth. It's also important to understand that this is the post-COVID era. And during the COVID period, 20 years of progress for many emerging countries of the South has been wiped out because of either COVID or because of inflation. And therefore, 200 million people have lost their jobs, 100 million people have become illiterate. And therefore, we are midway point of 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Mm-hmm. We have to, instead of progressing, we have regressed, and we have to accelerate the pace of Sustainable Development Goals, and that is what will be discussed, an action plan for that.
Okay, so you're hopeful of some big tickets, and we'll discuss them just a bit. Priya, go ahead.
Yeah, one more question regarding the meetings that have happened so far, the finance ministers and the foreign ministers meet. We were expecting a joint statement, but so far what has come out is a statement of outcome. This is largely because of the Ukraine war, and you're not getting China and Russia on board. But in the Bali meeting, a lot of the agreements that were happened in Bali are not being able to happen in India so far. So what does that say about India? Because there's a lot of hope from India as being the consensus builder, because if anybody is best placed, it is India. So do you see this moving forward, and where do you see it going, given the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine engagement?
So in Bali last year, you had a Russia-Ukraine crisis. 17 meetings of the ministerial level had failed. They could not come out with a communique. 17 meetings. It was, in the end, at the Sherpa level, a consensus was arrived at. And the consensus was that G20 is an economic grouping. Political issues should not come in here. And the argument of G7 was that the war is having severe repercussion on food, fuel, fertilizer, and their economies. And therefore, we went back and took the UN General Assembly, which is a political forum. UN General Assembly is the political forum. We took their resolution and put it in G20, but the G20 also said that this is not a political forum, it's an economic forum, and that's how a compromise was arrived at.
So you're not surprised that...
So when this finance minister and foreign ministers meeting has happened here, Russia said that Since then, lot has moved forward. While we've had 18.2 here, we are very confident that we'll bring everybody on board. We are very confident that we are being far more ambitious than any other country. The situation was far worse last year. We are very confident that we'll bring everybody together. We'll put up a very ambitious and a very action-oriented agenda for the leaders.
And of course, this builds up towards the main meetings which happen in the latter half of the year. Let's open this up to some questions. I'll take a few at a time and I'll make a note and then...
Rishabh, before you go, I just want to one anecdote about Mr. Kant, because we know him as the G20 Sherpa, but he's also the Sherpa of the Arogya Setu app when he was in Niti Aayog. And in fact, I think you did one of the interviews also with Deep Kalra. It was the biggest example of private-public partnership, but also he's saying he's so tech-savvy that, I think in minutes the whole thing was approved and it just went ahead and you really shepherded that through. So with his role in the Niti Aayog also and his
it's been an important and his historic role. Let's take some questions. Let's take hands up, please. Can we get some?
Priya has been grilling me since a long time, so this is another fresh round of grilling. Normally, you get grilled by one person. Here there are two very distinguished people grilling one person.
We pulled up 30 more chairs, sir, and given them a microphone.
Balance, not Mr. Kant.
All right, Mr. Jindal, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Amitabh ji, my name is Akash Jindal. I salute Prime Minister Modi and top people like you for organizing G20. Believe me, sir, you have made all of us feel proud. It's a proud year for all of us who believe in our country and our economic growth. Plus all other achievements like us being the fastest growing economy, fifth largest economy, the way you dealt with COVID. I salute Prime Minister Modi and you for all the achievements. But sir, while this government is doing 9 out of 10 things very well, but there's one thing which is seriously troubling us. Unemployment. You just mentioned COVID, but the sorry figure is that 7.8% is the current unemployment data, in spite of all good and genuine efforts.
Okay.
So I want to go.
Let me take that up as a larger G20 context, since it's an economic forum.
Just 10 second floor.
Yeah.
And on one hand, we are exhibiting nice things like G20. On other hands, we are having sorry pictures like Ram Nami and Hanuman Jayanti violence, which foreigners are seeing.
On the image of India, on the image of India, I think that's reasonable to ask. I think Joyita has a question. Let's get more microphones across, please.
Mr. Kant, my name is Joyita Basu. I have a very short and simple question to you. Do you see Mr. Putin and Mr. Biden in the same room in September in India?
Oh, that's a tough one, huh? Okay, Joyita. Very simple question you said. Entire geopolitical question you asked him. It's a very simple question. There's another hand up here. Several hands are up. Let's get Mr. Mani in, then let's get Firoji.
Actually, I'm proud of having known Mr. Kant when he was in the Commerce Ministry also. So, I always had highest respect for him. Incidentally, he had spoken about the unemployment. The Honorable Prime Minister had spoken several occasions about Swarojgar and Kaushal Bharat, Kushal Bharat. And it has made some really watershed changes in the way the youth think. So the paradigm of unemployment to unemployment, job related and all that, is the G20 or as a national policy and taking it at the level of international policy also, will there be a paradigm shift from a job-linked occupation to a self-employed occupational status?
Different way of looking at jobs. Okay, can we get a microphone to Firozji? Then I see more questions. I will do more rounds after this. I don't want to completely lose track of what the questions were.
Thank you. Congratulations to NewsX and the entire team, Gulati ji. And Kanji, if I am not wrong, you are a modernite? Which year?
Sir has taught in school.
Yes. I mean, I can proudly say that you, though I did not teach you, but you are in that category. My name is Firoz Bakht Ahmed. I am the former Chancellor of Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. Now, I come to the question directly. This G20 has been, I think, drafted on the paradigm of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or what we in one of our hadith call Al-Khalqu Ayalullah, for all the humanity. Now, do you have any plan for cultural nationalism or maybe international cultural activities for all the religions and for all the castes, all the people? So I am more concerned about culture and religion. vis-a-vis G20.
Okay,
Thank you.
cultural and religious inclusivity. Okay, I'm going to get started first. Okay, the concept of unemployment. Of course, the question is related because we are sitting here in India, but it has an economic consequence. You've just mentioned that unemployment has been rising in different parts because of economic challenges, inflation, and lifestyle challenges as well. How does G20 as a forum, Mr. Kant, deal with issues like this?
So that's why the first thing I mentioned was that there has to be inclusive, resilient, sustainable growth over a long period of time. How do you create jobs? You create jobs through growth. You don't create jobs by distributing poverty. And therefore, the first and foremost priority of India is to accelerate the pace of inclusive, resilient growth. Secondly, our priority is to accelerate the implementation of sustainable development goals, push for digital transformation, push for digital public infrastructure which India has built up, because then you will be able to provide education, health, literacy to the people. And it's important to understand that G20 is an economic growth and a developmental forum. It's not a forum for individual countries, it's a forum for the whole world. When 20 countries join together, it's about 85% of the global GDP. And therefore, you are not talking about individual countries, you're talking about the challenges before the world. And it's very important to say this because when Prime Minister Modi is taking over leadership of this, he's not just being the Prime Minister of India, but he's talking as a leader of the whole G20. That means he has to speak the voice of growth and progress and prosperity, which he has done all through.
Okay.
And therefore, we have to talk, when he talks about Vasudev Kutumbakam, he's saying that there may be different political ideologies, there may be different geographical boundaries, but we all come from the same cosmos. And therefore, there may be unity, there has to be unity in diversity, and therefore, this larger principle of Vasudev Kutumbakam should guide the principle of the world.
Okay.
It's a philosophical message that he's sending out to all the G20 countries.
Okay, then the big onion, two heads of state, heads of government, currently a US president and a Russian president. Can we realistically expect that India can be the most likely place if they were to meet at a G20 forum?
Well, we've invited everyone. We will be good hosts to every single G20 countries. The Prime Minister will invite every single leader. We would expect everyone to be here, and we would like this to be a G20 which will move forward, thinking of the larger world and not of just the challenge of one part. See, it's very important to understand that there is a geographical complexity in one part of the world, which is impacting citizens in one part of the world. But there are many other bigger challenges as well. There's a challenge of 75 countries being impacted by global debt. There's a challenge of 1/3 of the world being impacted by recession. There's a challenge of the whole world being impacted by climate action. There's a challenge of 200 million people going below poverty line. These are the challenges which have to confront the leaders, and that is what the Prime Minister has posed before the world.
Okay, I think the message is clear. Let's not get stuck with just one thing, even though that might seem the largest as the present. Okay, the conceptualization of self-employment. Now, this is not unique to India, also reflects, do these conceptualizations which we are trying to now make part of our lexicon, are there points of conversation at these meetings, sir?
No, there are the challenge of jobs, the challenge of growth, all these are very critical issues which are discussed in both the finance track and the Sherpa track and are taken forward. But also there is an important political narrative in terms of India being a very vibrant, lively democracy. When you are hosting it, after all, it's about leadership. So you have a leader who's been democratically elected, and whose credit rating is still very high whose rating by the people of India is very high at about 71%. So when he is the leader for the G20, that's important. It's also important about the developmental narrative that we've built over 30 million houses. 30 million houses in the last 7-8 years means that you've provided a house to every single Australian. You've given 110 million toilets means you've provided a toilet to every single citizen of Germany. That's the scale. You look at 243 million people in India getting piped water connection. 243 million. That is like providing a piped water connection to every single citizen of Brazil. And look at our digital transformation. We do 11x payment of what USA and Europe do. We do 4x digital payment of what China does. We do 42% of the real-time fast payments in the world. And therefore, this development narrative of India is very important.
But there are many who don't want to listen to this narrative. So they want to listen to what was being referred to, that this incident happened, you guys don't get along, there's always some fighting, some rioting, religious and animosity. Some people do it because they don't understand better, don't know better. Some people do it because of malified intent. Is this message changing? Is the perception of India changing?
See, the challenge is that we have to grow at high rates for the next 3 decades. We are a very young country. Our average age of our population is 29. Even in 2047, our average age will be just 35. We have to live with positivity. If young Indians will not be positive, then who will be? And therefore, if we are all positive, India will grow and advance.
Okay. Promoting cultural ties, you already referred to that. You're not only taking people all across the place, but promoting India's ability of diverse conversation, which is the truth generally across the board when it comes to religious, cultural, and otherwise. Does that form a de facto part of what is being showcased?
Yeah, that's why we said that we are not doing the cultural programs, the states are doing it. And every state is doing its cultural program. From Kerala, beautiful Mohiniyattam, Kathakali, Tayyam, to Rajasthan, all the folk art forms of Rajasthan, to Maharashtra, to Gujarat, to Lakshadweep, to Arunachal Pradesh, it's all the local flavor all over. Every state has done its best. This is the best example of cooperative federalism in India.
Okay, let's give Priya an interjection. After that, we'll do another round of questions. Priya ji.
Yeah, no, this you're talking about the narrative, in terms of how India is being showcased outside, and this is really our best foot forward. We've got the world's attention on us. On G20, we are playing host to a whole lot of countries. At a time like this, on one hand, we are told that the Western media is against us. Do not listen to them. There is a narrative that is working against us. On the other hand, we are also trying to woo the same writers of that narrative. So, is G20 going to be a platform to showcase, to write a certain narrative that is going against us? Is that also the subtext of what you're trying to do?
No, we are saying that this is an opportunity. You are getting about a lot of visitors to the country. We can also do this country has hosted many events in the past. It has hosted Commonwealth in the past. We can do it in a very shoddy manner. We are not doing that. We are doing it in a highly professional manner by involving the citizens of the country. We are doing it by involving the best artists from each state. We have involved the states. We've involved the people. We've taken it to the schools, to the colleges. We've taken it to every single citizen of India. Explain to them what G20 is all about. It's been a huge process of a Jan Andolan. And that is what our attempt has been. That whatever we do, we should do it professionally. We should do it to highlight the best cultural aspects, the best handloom, the best handicrafts of India.
Okay, all right. Let's take another round of questions. Some hands raised. Can I get microphones across here, please, in the center? And I'll just come back up forward, please.
Mr. Kant, my name is Arjun Hardas. You mentioned, of course, right in the beginning that this is an economic forum, but can you keep politics really out of it? You've got Minister Zaparova who just insisted that Zelensky should address. And of course, Joyita mentioned, how do you have Biden and Putin in the same room? You're going to Zelensky in the middle, and that's even worse, kind of thing. So can you really keep politics out of the
Okay, all right. Can we take a couple of more questions? Yeah. Can we just stay with our mics so that we
Hello, Mr. Kant. My name is Shailendra Dubey. As in early centuries, India were leading in terms of the economy. Like we were having the portion of approximately 33% in production across the world. So my question is like, as per the Angus Madison economical data, as we are doing very good, we are the leading fastest growing economy. So how long will it take to, meet that early positions?
We all want it done by next year. Okay, all right, more questions up front. Can we get the lady in the sari? She's been having a hand up for some time.
Hello, sir. So you talk about Y20 and large population of youth. So I want to ask, as a youth, how the presidency of G20 will leave the great legacy and impact over the youth of India and their skill sets.
Okay, for the youth. Okay, let's take one more, then I'll just recapitulate them with sir. Can I get one at the back, then I'll come up front for the rest of the rounds.
Very good evening, sir. My question is that even building upon that question, more than Biden and Putin, India has the responsibility to represent the global south. So on the one hand, we want these big names on the table, and on the other hand, we have the responsibility to represent the global south. So how do we take that?
Okay, all right. We got a whole host of questions. Let me start at the top. Yes, you just had a demand that we should get the Ukrainian president here. There are reality checks around the world. There are more confusions going on in the Straits of Taiwan, in the Sea of Japan, and all sorts of things. We live in this world, sir. You've reiterated that this is an economic forum and we have shared economic issues regardless of all of this. But does it sometimes get subsumed?
No. So, as I said, that in the same challenges as we are facing were faced by Indonesia last year. The G7 said that the war is having a huge impact on economics, food, fuel, and fertilizer. But this is not a political forum. And therefore, the political forum is the United Nations General Assembly. The General Assembly and the Security Council have been conceptualized for political discussions. Therefore, we went back to the UN General Assembly. We didn't discuss politics. We took that resolution and put it in G20, and that's how we arrived at a consensus. And it clearly said that this is not a political forum. So you can't discuss everything which has not even been discussed in the UN General Assembly. That is not our objective at all. Our objective is that G20 should remain focused on economic, financial development and growth issues.
Okay, question from the young person in the audience. For young people, why should this matter? How does this impact them and how can they be involved?
So G20 works through various forums. There's a Sherpa track, there is a finance track. Then there are engagement groups, a number of engagement groups like Youth 20, Business 20, etc. There's a very lively Youth 20 where people come from different parts of the world, they interact, they come out with their agenda, they make their communique like the Business 20 does. Components of that, if they are good, are taken and put as a part of the final communique of the leaders, which is in case you come out with something interesting. But this is a huge opportunity for the youth to interact on global issues. And that is what Youth 20 is doing.
And of course, the policies being decided now have an impact 10, 20 years later from now. Okay, India's growth, so fifth largest economy, GDP is growing at the fastest rate.
So we are the fifth largest economy in the world. We'll soon be the third largest economy. But the important thing is that we must continue to grow at high rates. And that is why the Prime Minister has called it the Amrit Kal period till 2047. We need to grow at high rates of 8 to 9% per annum, year after year, year after year. For next 3 decades, we have very light dependency burden. We have a young population, and it's very important to do that. Number of reforms have been carried out in India. Huge reforms, digital transformation has taken place. We need to fire on all our cylinders. That is services, agriculture, manufacturing, urbanization, all this to grow at high rates. That will create new jobs. Jobs come out of good growth.
Okay, what is the role or the voice that India can play? We've had a very serious interaction as we speak. Our foreign ministers is in Uganda. We've taken our interactions with the African countries very seriously. Vaccine supply to a lot of these countries has been taken very seriously on India's own initiative. How are those voices represented at a forum which you say is, of course, controls 85% of the world's GDP?
So first is that India actually, when we started our presidency, the Prime Minister had a meeting with all the global South leaders, 122 countries. And it was called the Voice of the Global South Summit he held. It was a virtual summit we took all their recommendations and made it a part of our presidency. So we've consulted all of them before declaring our priorities. And now as we move forward, challenges of global debt, etc., which are confronting them, ensuring that more finances flow to them for purposes of climate action and sustainable development goals is what we are fighting for.
Yeah, global debt is the biggest takeaway. Okay, we can do one more round before we run out of time. I think Priya has a question in between. Meanwhile, please raise your hands. I'll get a microphone to you. Priya, go ahead.
No, I just want to ask you this whole, the G20 event is being showcased as, as India's growth story. We are going to be seeing a whole lot of events, a whole lot of showcasing of what India under Prime Minister Modi has achieved. Is it a very happy coincidence that this is also happening just before a general elections? Do you see this impacting the general election results also?
So Priya,
people are saying the campaign is being kicked off by G20.
No.
By Amitabh Kant.
No, Priya, that's
That's a bit cheeky.
No. See, I'm a civil servant. I work as an envoy to the Prime Minister. The Sherpa is an envoy to the Prime Minister. My job is to do my job. I look at what I have to execute and how well can I execute it. I don't look at the political aspect of it. And I think it's unfair to link it up to politics. G20 is a very, very tough, difficult and a professional job. It must be done professionally. And that is what we are doing. We are doing a thoroughly professional job of it.
Okay, I think that's point been underlined. Okay, Mr. Kohli at the back.
My name is Sharad Kohli.
And my request to Priya also is that when you do professional jobs, please do not politicize this. This is should not be the job. We are doing our objective is to do a good professional G20 which leaves a lasting impact of India on the world and leaves a lasting legacy as a G20 presidency which is action-oriented, inclusive, decisive. That's what the Prime Minister said.
I think that's been underlined now. Dr. Kohli, go ahead.
Sir, my name is Sharad Kohli. I'm an economist and I've been following you for a very long time. And you've been involved in Niti Aayog also. So there's one point which I wanted to raise, which a lot of trade circles are asking, is that the decoupling from China, and the Prime Minister has also spoken about importing finished goods from China. So there are a lot of trade circles that I know, sir, who are still thoroughly, completely, totally dependent on China for their inputs, for their finished products, for branding, whatever. So, sir, when we talk of decoupling, how challenging is this task? Because some of the trade circles, sir, are finding it literally impossible to give away that cost advantage, the time advantage, the quality advantage, whatever it be. Okay. So how can this move forward?
Okay, noted, sir. Can we get another microphone here, please? Wing Commander, go ahead.
Good evening, Ms. Kant. Thank you very much for all your efforts. I'm Wing Commander Bakshi. I'm a military advisor and consultant to International Committee of Red Cross. The way we are looking at it, especially when late Shinzo Abe had suggested that India would emerge as a sort of a leader in the Indo-Pacific developing area. And I'm not talking of the conflict aspect, but the co-prosperity and joint development in industries and tourism, etc., are a very good area of development. And so does G20. Also is aiming at all those golden activities. And 5 countries to 7 countries of the Indo-Pacific area are part of G20. So do you think that both the activities in the Indo-Pacific zone and the G20 will form a synergy and joint development will take place and in a peaceful manner?
Okay, can we get a quick question from ma'am? And then we have one last question, then we'll let sir answer them and we'll wrap up.
Mr. Kant, my name is Rekha Agarwal. I'm an advocate, and at the same time, I'm just a common housewife. So you mentioned about promoting millets, and all over Delhi, at least, I can see fancy boards promoting millets as an alternate grain that we should be using in our day-to-day diet. What is the government doing about promoting it for the common man? Or is the country going to be confined to wheat and rice as a staple? And these grains will going to be confined to the richer class where they can eat in the fancy restaurants as an alternate gluten-free staple. So I think that the country needs to promote that also.
We need a lot more entrepreneurs, ma'am. We need to start with our own houses for sure. Okay, one last question there in the center, then we'll let sir answer them.
Amitabh Sahab, I'm a teacher at university, and my question is that we know that we are facing the skilled laborers issue. That's why we are having a great unemployment. And at the same time, the responsibility lies on the university so they can produce the more skilled people. But the selection in the universities, they are more political. So what's the government's plan to go for the betterment in every sector so we can lead the world in coming all the forums like G20 as economic forums? So what exactly the plan of the government?
Sir, you've tried your best to link that to the G20, but I will try to rephrase it as the best I can. Okay. So when it comes to the reality check that we at the same time, Amitabh ji, have a Make in India push. We want to be able to be producing our own products, our own finished products. We have trade deficits with some of these G20 players, and some of these are a problem for us. How do these matters get resolved, or are they not a matter of reflection in the G20?
So one is that the world works through global value chains. The world has become over-dependent on one country. It needs to diversify. It needs to demonopolize. Because we face these challenges during the COVID period where several components were not available, leading to short supply and the whole value chain getting disrupted in a very big manner. So you need a diversification from one source. But it's also important to understand that global value chain work where there are imports taking place of certain inputs. Everything can't be manufactured here. Certain components will come in. You have to do a higher level of value addition and capture that value addition in India. And therefore, India should push for manufacturing in several new areas of growth, sunrise areas of growth, like mobile manufacturing, which we have done, like advanced chemistry cell battery, like automobile, electric vehicles, etc. A whole range of new electronic goods which will come into the market. These are new emerging areas of growth, and these are value-added products where India must become a manufacturing nation. And that is what the production-linked incentive scheme needs to do. But the important thing is two. One is that we must become very productively efficient. We must become more efficient than China. The cost of production in India must be much cheaper than China, and it's possible for India to do that. And that is what these reforms of digitization, GST, IBC, RERA, lower corporate tax aim to do. That in the long run, India must become a very productively efficient economy. The ease of doing business, the decriminalization, the scrapping away of 1,500 laws, this is what the government is attempting, which will give you results in the next 2 to 3 years.
So fix it by just being better. Indo-Pacific, it's been a point of conversation now for the better part of 2 years, sir. As has been mentioned, the principal players in the Indo-Pacific, what we now talk about the Quad, are also members of the G20. Is there a focus shift per se? Because you also have people who are members, of course, from Europe and the OECD countries.
No. So our objective is to work in partnership with all countries. We work in partnership with Quad. We work in partnership with Indo-Pacific. It's important that we work very closely with them for several reasons, including trade, etc. These are groupings which are critical from India's national interest viewpoint, and we'll continue to work. After all, we work very closely with Japan. We work very closely with Australia. And these are important countries from the viewpoint of growth and progress and prosperity of India.
And of course, they are working closely with us as well now. I believe there are Australian companies hunting lithium in India and so much, so forth. Okay, a couple of questions left. Millets. It's been, we've all gone through our circles, kale and quinoa, and we realized that we had something in our own backyards. With bajra, you thought, you feed to the birds, but we've been told that this is a paleo product, which is excellent for us. In terms of its popularization, what can government do? At what point of time do entrepreneurs and people who are going to develop products on this take over?
Oh, I've seen some top-class products being made by startups. And I've seen some really top-class food being made out of millets in all the G20. Every single event has several dishes of millets. In Kerala, I just tried out a ragi appam, which was simply out of the world. All over, every single dish, every single meal that we've had has several dishes of millets, and we are doing our best to promote it. But the point she was making is that don't make it just a rich man's commodity. The challenge is that in rural areas, people already use a lot of millets. It's the rich people who've got used to consuming only wheat and rice. So it's the rich people who are consuming large quantities of wheat and rice. They need to change their habits to get better protein, iron, etc. And that is the way. The best way out is millets.
Okay, you heard it there. Last question, sir. When it comes to skill development, and of course, human resource is an important part, as you mentioned, in a young country going forward, and it's an important economic resource. Where does human resource and skill development fit into the larger rubric?
Human skill development is the most important thing, because we will be providing, by 2047, we'll be providing about 35% of the workforce to the world. You will see the best general managers of hotels, you will see the best IT skilled manpower, you will see the best artificial intelligence, machine learning people, you will see the best plumbers, you will see the best carpenter. All of them will be coming from India, wherever you go. And therefore, skilling is the most important thing which India is doing right now.
Okay, some would say that's already the case. Okay, ma'am, last thought, and then we leave it with some positivity.
No, this is a happy thought. Like you said, to take from your earlier point, that you're a bureaucrat, you're not a politician, but you work very closely with politicians. In fact, there's a mention of you in Ghulam Nabi Azad's book, I don't know whether you read it, where he talked about the work you've done in Kerala, I think. So some anecdotes of some politicians you worked with, or who's been the most easiest person that you've connected with, worked with? I mean, okay, two people. If one is Modi, then the other one.
So, when I got into IS, I ended up working in Kerala. And my first posting was in a very difficult place, because there was a lot of violence. I was posted by the then Chief Minister, Mr. Karnakaran, to a place called Telisheri as sub-collector, and as later collector in Calicut, which again was that's where Vasco da Gama had landed and discovered India. And he posted me in a very difficult job, which was transforming the lives of traditional fishermen. I worked there for 4 years, providing them outboard motors, new crafts, new engines, new fishing nets, opening their bank accounts. And it used to take a long time to open their bank accounts then. Today we do it in 1 minute, then it used to take 8 to 9 months to do Know Your Customers. But I really gained working with them, making their self-help groups. I really benefited from it. So I had a great experience working with Mr. Karnakaran in Kerala. And that's how I got to love Kerala as this thing, and he was a decisive chief minister. I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Modi, because I got...
Niti Ayog, you were the first CEO.
No, I was Secretary Industries when the work started happening on ease of doing business. And we did a scrapping of... then ease of doing business, we scrapped a lot of rules, regulation, procedures. We made India jump up 79 position in the ease of doing business. And later, I worked with him on Make in India, then Startup India. Then when, the post-demonetization, the digital push that was given, a lot of work was done in Niti Ayog around that. And later, in the aspirational district program, where we worked on 112 of the most backward districts of India to transform the lives of citizens. So I have found the Prime Minister as a man of very big vision, and as a man who's, he thinks through a lot. He's very visionary. He's also a very big techie. So that's, I think I have gained enormously by working with him.
Okay, next is one district, one product, ODOP, I'm told. Okay, we've had a riveting conversation. We are out of time. I'm going to thank Amitabh Kant both for the service that he's doing to this. Yes.
Permission and that of Kanji's, I want to share a slogan for Modi ji with all the audience.
Please, sir. Please.
मैं स्लोगन अक्सर शेयर करता हूँ चैनल्स के ऊपर कि मोदी जैसा दमदार, दिलदार, वज़ादार, जानदार, शानदार, कामदार एंड अबव ऑल ईमानदार वज़ीर आज़म हिंदुस्तान में नहीं आया है. उसकी कदर कर लो. उसे सत्ता का लालच नहीं है. नहीं तो वो अपना झोला लेके पहाड़ों में चला जाएगा. Thank you so much.
Appreciate thoughts and like I said, at least positivity. There's plenty of time for all the other conversations, and we in the news people are always surrounded generally by negative conversations. Let's have a round of applause for Amitabh Kant. Thank you very much for joining us on this 5th session of the Capital Dialogues. With that, we take a break. Thank you very much.